everyone, and welcome to another episode of Kink, the Wellbeing Podcast with no content boundaries. My name is Georgie and I'm your host. And recently I had the pleasure of speaking with Tash. She is a life and career coach. She supports women to have confidence in themselves so that they can achieve their goals. And she speaks of how she decided to become self-employed and gives us tips and tools to work through our own ambitions. So I hope you enjoy, and please let us know. I just want to acknowledge where we are today. We're in the Cathedral Cove in New Zealand, and if you've ever had the pleasure to be here, it's one of the most unbelievable places I've ever seen. So I hope you enjoy the podcast, and please let me know. Cheers. Hi Tash, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us. I'd really love to know more about what you do as a life and career coach, and how you established that was where your expertise lies, and the journey to becoming the life coach.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me firstly, Georgie. It's nice to be on here and having the opportunity to talk with you, and also to share for all of your viewers and listeners. I guess I also say viewers because there's a video, I think.
Yeah.
So I am a career and life coach, and I work mostly with ambitious, hardworking, and overachieving women. So generally those who work in the corporate space who are, feeling burnt out, overwhelmed, kind of not really sure where they want to go. And I guess what brought me to this point, so my background is actually in HR. So I've been in the human resource profession for over 10 years, and that's what I studied at university. So there was always an element of, I guess, advising or coaching that came into that role, especially as I got higher in my career in terms of becoming a business partner and then becoming a people and performance manager. There was always an element of coaching that, not just with employees, but also with managers as well. And the thing that I started to see, I guess, as I was getting further along in my career is just, is this it? Is this kind of what life is? I guess a big part of any coach, I imagine, that you'll probably talk to is a lot of it comes from our own personal journey and in terms of why we want to step into coaching. So for me, there was the element of kind of the career aspect of is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? Do I just want to work myself up to being an HR director and kind of that's what my career is? And in 2015, I was actually made redundant from an HR consulting company, and at the same time was broken up with by my partner at the time within the space of 4 days. And so my whole world kind of imploded, oh my God, what is happening? And like all good things, or all kind of big cataclysmic things in your life, it was exactly what needed to happen. I was unhappy. There were all of these questions kind of going on within myself, but was I ever going to do anything about it? Probably not. I would probably just kind of go through the same cycle. And when that happened, it was almost just well, you wanted things to change. Here we go. This is your opportunity. What are you going to do with this? And so that kind of became the starting point of okay, what do I actually want for my life? Am I just going to continue doing the same thing? Is this just the life that I'm going to continue to live, go from relationship to relationship and job to job? And when I got made redundant, I decided, I was I'm never going to be permanently employed again. That was kind of the line in the sand. I was is this really more secure than being out on your own if you can be made redundant? And it seems to be happening more and more. I mean, the current situation that we're in is kind of besides the point, but I had been noticing that it was happening a lot more as well. And I just decided, I was you know what? I've always wanted to work for myself. I'm going to start that transition plan. And for me, that was to go into fixed term role. So I decided, I was okay, well, I'm going to do a 12-month fixed term. And the 12-month fixed term that I secured wasn't starting for 2 months. So I secured 2, but I chose the one that wasn't starting for 2 months. And I was I'm actually going to take this 2 months to be with myself and to understand who I am, what do I want from life, and start that journey. So that was, so that's kind of how I started my self-employment journey. So I wasn't one of those people that was like, great, I'm going to be self-employed and I'm just going to quit my job and then do it. I had a lot of mindset issues, and we can talk about that as well. I had a lot of mindset issues that came into play, which meant that a transition plan was the best option for me, about kind of taking a few smaller steps to get myself ready to do that.
I think it's really powerful that you used those two major things, losing your job and a breakup, to then push you in the direction of becoming your own boss. That's incredible.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and I guess it's a lot of the work that I do with mindset, right? So at the time, I never knew this stuff. So like, my partner's been my coach a lot of the time. He's a qualified coach as well, and he's really kind of taken me a lot on this journey. We've been together for almost 4 years. And that's what mindset is. Like, I could have taken that opportunity, or that situation, and just turn it into a victim situation. I could have chosen that. I could have been like, you know what, like, this is shit, and like, sorry, can I swear on this?
Yeah.
I normally don't, but yeah, like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like, the world's out to get me. Like, why me? All of that stuff. And that's what I'd always done in my past. But I was like, but I'm just ending up in the same place.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just here again. I mean, I'd never been made redundant before, but in kind of the relationship aspect, I was like, I'm here again. Like, what's going to change? And yeah, and I think it's like, that's a lot of the work that I do. It's just like, well, how are we going to choose to look at this? Like, what are we going to take from this experience and go, okay, is there something that I want differently here? Like, what is the lesson? Like, what is this something that I've actually really wanted deep down, but I was never actually going to make that choice for myself? And this was the universe's way of going, well, either shut up about this whole thing that you keep talking about, or actually do something about it. I'm going to give you that choice. So yeah, it was kind of that. And I think and I guess, like, the work that I want to do is, like, I don't want people to have to get to that point of, like, their whole world changes and then they make a different, and then they make a different choice, or then they try and do something different. Like, I don't think that we have to get to that point. Sometimes we do. Sometimes that is part of the journey, and sometimes we have to go through that where it's just so uncomfortable and so painful, and that's the only time we're actually going to be able to see that we now need to make a different choice. But I don't think that always has to be the case. I think with a little bit of discomfort, we can choose to do something different.
You mentioned mindset. How do people identify that their mindset is, it might be quite negative, or they have limiting beliefs about themselves? How does one identify that and move from that mindset?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, and I guess, like, the mindset's an interesting thing because not everyone would use that terminology. So with a lot of my clients, I don't tend to say, like, oh, let's talk about mindset.
Okay.
I guess the terminology mindset is where I am now. So, like, that's kind of how I refer to it, kind of with where I am in my life. But kind of for someone who is really unsure, or kind of at the start of that journey, it's like, what am I thinking about?
Yeah.
Like, what are the stories that I'm telling myself about the way that my life is? That's what mindset is. It's the stories that are going on inside of our head. And there is a book written by Carol Dweck called Mindset, and I would highly recommend every single person to read that book.
Thank you.
I thought that I had quite a growth mindset. Turned out there were many aspects of my mindset that were quite fixed, and I was like, no, I should be far more evolved than this. But it highlighted so much, which was amazing. So yeah, like, I guess to start kind of asking yourself, like, what am I thinking about day to day? How are the stories that I'm telling myself showing up? A lot of the time, the biggest mindset things, I guess the more negative ones, is like, if you're complaining all the time, like, if you're finding yourself, you're complaining, you're gossiping, you're judging, you never kind of find the good in life, or kind of the positive lining. That's when you can start to notice, like, okay, maybe my mindset isn't actually where it needs to be. Maybe I am kind of going towards more of that negative thought patterns and thought process.
Yeah.
And that can be in itself quite hard. And so another way to kind of dig down to that a bit further is, how am I feeling? So the way that we kind of go through, like, the way that our mind works is, we see or hear something, we create a story about it, and that's the thought, because we're storytelling beings. We create a story about it. Then we have a feeling. So the thought then creates the feeling that we have. And then from that feeling, we then choose what we do. So then our behavior comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we tend to notice first is the feeling, because that's the tangible thing that we can feel in the body.
Yeah.
And so what we can start to do is go, okay, and just check in periodically throughout the day of like, how am I feeling? If I'm feeling anxious, that knot in the stomach, I'm feeling really restrictive, I'm feeling quite heavy, what is the story that's going around in my mind right now? Oh, life is really hard. God, that guy was such a dick. Oh, I hate my partner. You know, I hate my job. COVID-19 sucks. You know, like whatever. That is going to create a really uncomfortable, heavy, restrictive feeling in the body, because how are those stories helping us?
Yeah.
They're not. And so that's how we can start to become a bit more aware about what's actually going on in our body and in our mind. So sometimes it's the easy place to start is with the feeling.
And are there tools and techniques that you use personally when you're, you know, in that zone trying to discover what's going on inside?
Yeah, so journaling, absolutely. I would 100% recommend journaling. So I've got on my website, I have a powerful journaling guide that it's a really great starter point to start the journaling practice. And that's just a really good, safe way of just starting to clear out what's going on in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be deep. It's just what's going on. What am I thinking? Let's get it out. Because a lot of the time we just ruminate on what's actually going on in there. The other technique, it's actually a cognitive behavioral therapy technique, more commonly known as CBT, and psychologists use it a lot. So that's what I used when I went through my breakup and redundancy. I saw a psychologist and did a lot of CBT work, and it's a model called catch, challenge, change. So that's when we can start to catch our thoughts and the stories, like, okay, what's the story I'm telling myself right now? Or what's the story that's playing out? Challenge it. Okay, how is the story serving me? What's the evidence that I have for this story? Is there a better story that I can tell? And then change it. So what's the better story? What's the better feeling that I can have in this moment? And even if it's just like 1% better, that's the shift.
Yeah.
Because, you know, where energy goes, energy flows, right? So the more negative we become, the more negative things happen around us, the more negative we become, and it just becomes a downward spiral. And the same thing can happen for the positive. The more we focus on the good things, the more we focus on the positive things, the more that we notice them, and the more that then gets created in our life. So it really can work both ways. The difference is the choice. Yeah. Which one am I going to choose to go to?
True. In regards to you stepping into being your own boss and stepping into that zone, how did you shift into that kind of mindset, and are the things that are the rules of becoming your own boss, and how does one do that? How can we empower ourselves? Sorry to drop that one on you.
Yeah. Big question. I think the one thing that I want to preface is like, it's so different for everyone. And it really, I think one of the big things before kind of stepping into being your own boss or starting your own business is really understanding where are you at in terms of, one, your life, but also just in terms of where is your mind at? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you taking this step, and what does it mean to you to take that step? Because that's when we can start to uncover what are some of the potential stories that are going to create those blocks, or create some of those challenges, and then also making sure that we attach to the right why we're doing this. True. So for me, it was quite kind of that like line in the sand where I was like, I'm never going to be permanently employed again. And I knew that one day I possibly would work for myself, but it wasn't a decision I made in 2015 of like, okay, I'm definitely going to work for myself. It was just, I knew that I wasn't going to be permanently employed. And for me, potentially, it could have just been fixed terms, possibly for the rest of my career. But in taking those 2 months off, I was like, oh, I actually really like this. Like, I love having a bit of flexibility, a bit of freedom. And then I took a 13-month fixed term, which was that first one. And then I was going to move to London and do 2 years in London because there was nothing left for me in New Zealand. Then I met my partner a year later. And then yeah, and then I did another fixed term. So sorry, when I finished that, I went traveling for 2 months, came back, and then did another fixed term. And when I was traveling, I was like, actually, I do want to have my own business. And not even my own business, I just wanted to work for myself. And stepping into HR consulting was going to be my easiest way to do that, because it's easy. I don't want to say it's easy to be an HR consultant, but it's like kind of like an easy step into that world. And then while I was out traveling, I was like, actually, like, I also want to find a way of making a difference for people. So, and that's when I also decided, like, I don't want HR to be the rest of my life. I was starting to kind of lose touch with it, and I was starting to find that I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to. And that's just because we change and we shift, and I think that that's something we all really struggle with. Well, not all, but a lot of people really struggle with, and they have that tension. But when I came back from traveling, my partner was finishing his life coaching qualification, and I was like, I actually had a channeling, and I don't know if this is going to get very woo-woo or spiritual or weird, but I had a channeling. My partner introduced me to that, which is something I'd never done. And in that channeling, it said that I needed to study, I needed to do something different. I needed to study. I was like, okay, what does that even mean? And never heard of life coaching before, other than Kyle talking about it. And then it just came up. Like, I came across this post on Instagram, like, would you love to be a life coach? I was just like, does this count as studying? Like, I mean, like, does this count as like me studying more? And I looked at a few different options, and I found one. And so I ended up studying with Beautiful You Coaching Academy, because it was just, there was so much heart-centeredness that came into it, and that really resonated with me at the time. And yeah, and then I was like, oh, well, maybe I can like bring the two together and do like HR and life coaching and everything like that. And so while I was studying to do that, I took another fixed term, but this time I took it as a part-time. So I took it as 4 days a week, because I was like, okay, well, this is going to be the start of me fully going out on my own. But again, like, as I mentioned at the beginning, I wasn't the all or nothing person. I needed to make something kind of work better for me. Yeah. So yeah, and so I went to 4 days a week, and then I went to 3 days a week. And then when I finished studying, I finished studying 6 months later, but I ended up staying with that contract for another 6 months after that. And I went as a consultant. So I went independent as an HR consultant, got a few clients, and that's when I started, I guess, that self-employed, like when I fully went out as like a self-employed. I was like no longer an employee, invoicing, tracking my time and all of those things. But it was a very slow process for me. It was very intentional. I really needed to make sure that I had the space, that I didn't get into fear or too much scarcity, which was really important for me. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely. The other thing I was wondering, obviously, coming in, developing your business, there's going to be hidden challenges. What were the main hidden challenges for you, when you were starting out?
I think one of the biggest challenges was the selling, I guess, like the sales or the marketing aspect. So, and that's only really come through in my coaching side. So in HR, because I had 10 years and I had a huge network, I had done so much like social media work and stuff. So I never really had to sell the HR side of my business. It always just happened. It always just flowed. There was a lot of word of mouth. I've actually since this month, I've completely finished HR work now. So I fully stepped into being a coach. And so what has the biggest challenge really kind of in the coaching side of my business is like, how do I sell myself? Because that's so different than selling HR work. Like, sure. I can prove why people need HR support, and like what difference it makes to your business. But yeah, I guess, and I mean, this is going to be different to different people and kind of what businesses they end up wanting to start. But, for me, there was a huge block around sales and thinking, like, how do you sell? And like, you don't want to be salesy, you don't want to be like that other those people over there and that kind of thing. But the way that I've worked with my own coaches to work through this as well. But the way that I've come around with that challenge is like, instead of seeing it as sales, it's seeing it as service. you know, like I'm here to serve and I'm here to help people step into their full potential, you know, and I can't do that without sales. But sales doesn't have to be icky. You know, it doesn't have to be this gross thing that you do. The other big challenge for me has really been mentally stepping out of corporate world. That's been a really big challenge in terms of having to sit at my laptop for 8 hours a day, and like that's what productivity is. And you know, no one's there directing your work. Oh my god, everyone thinks that that's the dream. You get into it and you're like, so like, what now? Like what do I do? You know, and it's so easy to fall into procrastination when you work for yourself, because you don't have a lot of people there being like, so this was due yesterday, you know, because it's like you're setting a lot of your own deadlines. You're like, yeah, but I'll just do it tomorrow.
How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you do that?
So I've joined Productive AF for one, so that I actually have to look at the things that I need to do and be like, okay, you can't step out of that. But I've started to now be more professional in the way that I run my business around, you know, if I need to have these many clients per month in order to sustain myself, this is the work that I need to do. Okay, I need to show up in these places. Like this is the free content I need to create, or like this is the offer I need to put out. So whereas like last year, because I had my safety net of HR work, I was a bit too blasé about it. I was like, oh, it's fine. Like if I get one client this month, like that's cool, you know, that'll be a win. But now I'm like, this has to pay for my life. So, you know, I need to show up, and I was showing up, but just a lot more intentionally. So there is a lot more parameters around it. And so, but the balance for me always, so I don't know if you've ever done human design, but human design is like how you utilize your energy, and it's based on like when you were born and where you were born and stuff. And I'm a projector. So that's my energy type, which we own. Like as a projector, you have bursts of energy. So we're not productive when we're working for 8 hours a day, when we're just like cramming stuff out. And I noticed that with myself. And so, so I've been a lot more intentional around like, what are the things that I need to get done? And I do them in the morning. So I do like my creative work in the morning when I'm most productive, when I'm most present. And then I'll do like my meetings, and I'll do, you know, things like podcasts and stuff where I can do more talking, where there's not a lot of like really deep kind of intellectual thinking that I need to do. I do that in the afternoon, and then I really try and create that space and that break in between, because when you're self-employed, there is this feeling like you need to be working all of the time. You need to be hustling, and you know, you need to be working 100 hours a week because that's what success is, you know, that's what made Tony Robbins famous, and I don't know, whatever. I'm like, but I cannot function like that. Like I have a 6-hour sleep and I'm dead to the world the next day. Like I need to have like my 8 hours or my 9 hours, and I need to have space during the day. But it's always that battle that I have around giving myself that space, you know, and like it's almost always that tension that you have with yourself, and like, yeah, but what are other people doing, and they must be working heaps of hours and all of those things. So yeah, I've been trying to be a lot stricter with my deadlines and having more accountability in my life. So like productive AF group, you know, I've got my own coach as well, so you know, she's messaging me being like, so did you do your reach outs today? Like, did you know, and I'm just like, oh, good, just like chill. But no, so like yeah, I think that is definitely one of the hard parts about working for yourself as well. It's like, it's just you. You know, you don't have a lot of people around you, so making sure that you create that support network is really, really important.
And that's what I love about there's these communities of people helping each other out, coaches, you know, having coaches for themselves, and I absolutely love that. That just seems the norm, that you know, it's okay to ask for help, you know, even when you're helping others, and that's not something that I was familiar with back home. You know, I just thought, oh, you can't help, you know, if you're in that kind of position, you don't ask for help, you just deal with it, kind of thing. So it's really lovely to see.
Yeah, and I think that there is a lot, you know, I'm working with you know, one of my clients at the moment, and she created this like it's this story of like, yeah, but I'm not there, and like, how could I be someone that helps someone else, because like, look at me, like I'm still getting a coach. I'm like, I have a coach.
Yeah.
Like, I've been on my personal journey for 5 years now, and I still have a coach. Like, I still have a day where I have a complete breakdown and feel like I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. It doesn't mean that I can't help people. It's just, we only need to be those 2 or 3 steps ahead of the person that we're helping, and actually the power isn't in doing it yourself. The power is in bringing someone else along on that journey with you. Because when we try and kind of do it by ourselves, we get into that fixed mindset, and this is what Carol Dweck talks about, is like, we get into that fixed mindset state where it's like, if I don't know it all, then I'm a failure.
Yeah.
And we just don't have space for that when you're building your own business. Like, there just isn't space for that. And that's something that I struggled with. And it's something that you do have to work through. But yeah, like, the best coaches have coaches. We're all still doing our work. We're all still learning and growing. It's just, I'm maybe just a few steps ahead, kind of taking my next few steps ahead, and you'll be where I am, you'll come to where I am, and then you'll, go that next step too. Like, we're not staying the same, every day. Yeah. So definitely I'm all about the help, even though I struggle with asking for it, but
the other thing, you mentioned the community group that we're both in, the Productive AF group. Do you know of other groups, not so personal ones, but groups where entrepreneurs reach out to each other and speak about their challenges and things like that? Do you have any?
Yeah, like, I'm not a part of very many. So I'm on another one on Facebook for projectors. So that's a bit more of a human design specific one.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's good. Sometimes I think they take it a bit too literally, where I'm like, we don't have to be like black and white about this. But anyway, it's just my own opinion. Other ones. I think what I would suggest doing is, what are the areas that you would want that support in? So like, what is the support that you're looking for? And then reaching out and like doing some searching, like whether that's on Facebook or, reaching out to other people in your networks,
Mm-hmm.
that are similar to you, and go, okay, are you part of something? Like, what have you found? And then if you can't find anything, but of a few people who actually need it, why not create it yourself?
Love that.
That's
and
then
idea.
and then create, like Megan, who created Productive AF. That's what she needed. And then she just talked about it and shared it with a few people, and we keep talking about it and sharing with other people. So sometimes we're waiting for the invitation, or like we're waiting for the space to be created by someone else, but actually, if we really need it, can we not create that space and then bring other people in?
Thanks, that's really good advice. I hadn't actually ever thought of it that way.
Yeah. So like, for an example, so I do a fortnightly workshop called Mindful Monday, and it's online, and it's a coaching and reflection workshop. And I found, so I've run about 4 of them now. They were initially supposed to be monthly, but with C19 we went to fortnightly. And what I realized was, I was just like, so every fortnight I bring usually the same people. Like, I've had quite a few return, which is amazing, but we talk about a different topic every fortnight. And I'm just like, how many of them are like getting all of this value out of the session and then probably just putting it in the notebook and then going on with life?
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, like, one, that's their choice, because if they're not going to commit, then I can't control that. But if I want to create more integration, why not create a space for them to do that? So I created a Facebook group, and now they're all communicating there, going, I just had a message in there from one of the ladies being like, I just actioned one of my bravery steps from our Mindful Monday on Monday.
Wow.
It feels so good, and now we can create this community where they can share their challenges, they can share when they've got their wins, and then that is what creates that, oh, okay, so she did it, so like, okay, I need to do mine now. And that's how we can create that support and accountability in itself too.
Wow. And Tash, is that a space open to anyone? Can anyone join?
So the people who can join the group need to have attended a Mindful Monday. So I want there to be, an ongoing, like, not that they have to come to every Mindful Monday, but at least have an introduction into what it's about and that. But Mindful Monday is open. Yeah, Mindful Monday is something that that anyone can register and join. And then it's up to them whether they want to join the Facebook group as well. I've definitely noticed that the ones that have joined are the ones that are struggling with integrating and are kind of just leaving the actions to the side and not doing the work. And so they love the fact that there's a space now where they're like, okay, I can't hide. Yeah, which is great.
Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I was
Okay.
I was so excited about Mindful Mondays. I was like, I need something else to hold me accountable for what I'm doing.
We'll come along. The next one's all about courageous conversations. So
absolutely, I would really love to. The other thing, I have been stalking your Instagram, and there's just so much wonderful information and tips that you've given on there. So I really urge our listeners to give you a follow, and because there's just some amazing stuff on there. How else might people get in contact with you, Tash?
So I'm definitely more active on Instagram for sure. So I offer a lot of free content on there through my posts and through my stories. So absolutely. I also have a fortnightly newsletter that goes out as well. So that's usually a different topic, and usually something that's probably come up with my clients that possibly is something that a lot of people might experience. So I'll usually share that. And I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So for anyone, I also share quite a lot on LinkedIn. So yeah, that's definitely where you can find me, mostly on Instagram, just because it's easier to be more in real time on Instagram.
Yeah, it's the place to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have this question, and I like to just throw it in there because you never really know what you're gonna get, and it's what inspires you and keeps you going, keeps you motivated.
Good question. Oh, what inspires me and keeps me motivated? Just the potential that people have, a lot of the clients that I work with, they feel so confused, they feel so lost and overwhelmed and anxious. And I'm just like, that is just not the way we're meant to be living life, in that fight or flight, or just feeling like we don't know what we're doing. I mean, God, no one knows what they're doing, but just have that sense of connection. And I think what keeps me going and what inspires me is that, I have the ability to just touch the life of one person, every day, whether that's through sharing what I'm currently feeling or sharing something that's come up for someone. At least every single day I am messaging one person and they're like, wow, like, thank you for sharing that. That really resonated. This is what's going on. I'm like, okay. So and I give a lot away for free, because yes, I could be like, well, no, you need to jump into coaching, but I'm also here just to serve and inspire as well. And if that can be through an easy, okay, so if you're experiencing this, like, you can possibly look at it this way, like, how would that change what you're experiencing? And a lot of the time people just need someone to be like, just need that little prompt, that little nudge, to just become a little bit more self-aware, because we all know the answers. We all know exactly what it is that we want. We all have all of that. It's just hidden under a whole lot of conditioning and a whole lot of fear and a whole lot of everyone else's BS, that we're holding on to and carrying. And what inspires me and motivates me is just, how can I help one person strip back one little layer today?
Thank you.
So that they can take another little step.
That's amazing. Tash, thank you so much. Do you feel like I've missed anything, or is there anything important or any words of wisdom that you feel you would like to share with our listeners before we depart?
No, I think like you did really well. You asked like really good questions. I think the only thing I would say is, like there is no right or wrong way to live your life. There is no, you need to be doing this or you shouldn't be doing this. It's just be brave and just live, decide to do what you want to do. And a lot of the people struggle with, oh, but my parents might not like this, or like, oh, but I should be, staying in corporate life, or I should be doing this. It's like, if that's not what lights you up and that literally feels like a dread for you every single day, then you need to do something different. And yes, that takes bravery. Yes, that takes courage. But when are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Like we don't know when our life is going to end. So it's like, are we just going to wait until tomorrow and then wait until the next day and then the next day and then the next day? And, one of the books that my last Mindful Monday was Being Brave. And I haven't read this book personally, but it's on my list. It's like the 5 regrets of the dying, I can't remember what her name is now. Her name slipped my mind. But she literally interviewed hundreds and thousands of people and found what their biggest regrets were in their life. And so many of them was like, they didn't do what they wanted to do. And it's just like, if what you want to do is completely different to what you're doing now, that's okay. Make a transition plan, take one little step that's going to get you a little bit closer, but be brave and live your life. Like that's all we can do.
And what I love about but when I was living back home, I never had ever thought of getting a life coach or having someone just to hold space for me and talk about my greatest fears and just have someone to give me guidance. It was never something that was on my radar, and my world has been opened by all these amazing people who are just willing to help and just hold space for us and guide us. That's just unbelievable, and I love and respect you all for being there for people. It's a truly amazing role.
Yeah, and like I don't have the answers. Like I don't know what you should be doing with your life. Like you know exactly what you should be doing with your life. Yeah. I'm just there to ask the questions. Yeah. I'm there to stretch you and to push you and to help you peel back all of that fear and conditioning and whatever else is keeping you stuck. And like a lot of people laugh like, oh, you're a life coach, like God, like who needs a life coach, who needs people how to do life? And it's like, are you living a life that you really love? No. Well, why? Oh, well, I don't know. Okay, well, how are you going to figure that out? Oh, I don't know. So why not have someone external to your life to help ask those questions?
Exactly.
And and the other thing as well, it's like we're never going to ask ourselves the uncomfortable questions, because who wants to?
Yeah.
Who wants to sit in that discomfort? And that's why having a coach, someone that, exactly as you said, like that can hold that space for you, that can ask that challenging question and go, I'm going to sit here with you while you unravel that, while you understand that, and I'll be here. And I will create that safety for you so you can do that. And that's exactly what it is. It's like, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. Like I have no expertise in that, but I have expertise in asking questions.
Yeah.
And helping you uncover those things. And that's where the power is.
Thank you. Thanks
You're
so
welcome.
much, Tashs.
Thank you.
You've been such an incredible guest to have on the show. I'd actually love just to sit here and pick your brain all day, but I know you've got
we can do another one.
Thank you.
We can do another one on another topic. You just let me know.
Cool, will do. And I'd definitely love to be involved in Mindful Mondays, so I'll come and join you for one of those.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we'd definitely love to have you there. And just let me know if there's anything else that you need. But this has been a real privilege. So thank you so much. Thank you for letting me ramble on.
No, I loved it. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, Tash.
You too. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Bye.